Hey girls, it's me. Yes, that's a ladder in the background. This is my microphone in the corner. That's Grover. He's my piece. And this is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome. I have been, also pajamas. I have been avoiding. Is this the look? No. My grandma can wear a pop collar like nobody's business. I personally cannot. I've been avoiding this for like 3 days now. The true crime video, if you talk about my hair, you're rude. The true crime, yes, let me give a little white girl moment. This right here, why is she going doop when I need her to go whoop? Like, girl, who told you that's the direction in which to go? Disrespectful. Don't even look at her. Don't worry about her. I'm gonna talk like this. Okay. That's a cord. It's a cord, honey. It's only one plug in here. Let me scooch up. Yeah, so I've been avoiding this, honey. I've been avoiding true crime videos. Kind of take a lot out of me because we're talking about gore and death and things. But anyway, let's talk about Gein. I do not know. We're gonna call him Gein. Edward Theodore Gein. He was born August 27th, 1906, and he transitioned from this world to the nethers on July 26th, 1984. He was also known as the Butcher of Plainfield. I feel like I got a lot of mouth sounds. The Butcher of Plainfield, or the Plainfield Ghoul. He was an American murderer and body snatcher, which, His crimes were committed around his hometown of Plainfield, Wisconsin, and they gathered widespread notoriety in 1957 after authorities discovered that he had exhumed corpses, which is why he's a body snatcher, from local graveyards and fashioned trophies and keepsakes from their bones as well as their skin. He also confessed to killing 2 women, tavern owner Mary Hogan in 1954 and hardware store owner Bernice Warden in 1957. Gein was initially found unfit to stand trial and confined to a mental health facility. By 1968, he was judged competent to stand trial, and he was found guilty of the murder of Warden, but he was found legally insane and was remanded to a psychiatric institution. He died at the institution of respiratory failure, on the date that he died that I mentioned earlier, at the age of 77. He is buried next to his family in the Plainfield Cemetery in a now unmarked grave. Because the girl's head done went down to the grave child and started chopping it up, busting it up. Like, girl, you don't deserve a headstone. So they they took it down. Gein was born in La Crosse County, on the day that I already told you he was born, the second of 2 boys of George Philip Gein, born 1873, died 1940, and Augusta Wilhelmine. Wilhelmine. Ooh, I was struggling. And apparently her maiden name was Lerk. So I don't know where she got Wilhelmine. Was she married to somebody else when she had them Gein? Oh, that's her middle name. Excuse me. Augusta Wilhelmine Gein. Born 1878, died 1945. Gein had an older brother, Henry George Gein. He was born 1901, died 1944. Oh, so he didn't live very long at all. Not at all. Augusta hated her husband, an alcoholic who was unable to keep a job. He had worked at various times as a carpenter, tanner, and insurance salesman. Now, tanner, not meaning a person who is tanning human skin, but treating like leather, that kind of thing. George owned a local grocery shop for a few years, but he sold the business and the family left the city to live in isolation on a 155-acre, Jesus, that's a lot of acreage, farm in the town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, which became the Gein family's permanent residence. Augusta took advantage of the farm's isolation by turning away outsiders who could have influenced her sons, because she was nuts. Gein left the farm only to attend school. Outside of school, Gein spent most of his time doing chores on the farm. Augusta was fervently religious and nominally Lutheran. She preached to her boys about the innate immorality of the world, the evil of drinking, and her belief that all women, apart from herself, were naturally promiscuous and instruments of the devil. Now, I can speak for me as a woman. I personally am not an instrument of the devil. Personally. I don't know about any of the other women out there, but for myself, I'm not. She reserved time every afternoon to read to them from the Bible, usually selecting verses from the Old Testament and Book of Revelation concerning death, murder, and divine retribution. Gein was shy, and classmates and teachers remembered him as having strange mannerisms, such as seemingly random laughter as if he were laughing at his own personal jokes. Now, listen, I do that too. I be just walking around the house, I think of something, I be like, like, that don't make me crazy. Well, to make matters worse, Augusta punished him whenever he tried to make friends. Despite his poor social development, Gein did fairly well in school, particularly in reading. His father, George, died of heart failure in 1940. It was caused by his alcoholism, and he was 66. Henry and Ed began doing odd jobs around the house to help cover living expenses. The brothers were reliable and honest, according to residents of the community. Both worked as handymen, and Ed frequently babysat for the neighbors. We worry about that. He enjoyed babysitting, seeming to relate more easily to children than adults. Henry began dating a divorced mother of two and planned to move in with her. He worried about his brother's attachment to their mother and often spoke ill of her around Ed, who responded with shock and hurt. On May 16th, 1994, the brothers were burning away in marsh vegetation on the property. The fire got out of control, and the local fire department came. They had done swung by and was like, "Girl, y'all burning something over here? Now we got to put it out." The rudity. We have to address the rudity. By the end of the day, the fire having been extinguished and the firefighters gone, Ed reported his brother missing. With lanterns and flashlights, a search party searched for Henry, whose dead body was found facing down. Apparently, he had been dead for some time, and it appeared that the cause of death was heart failure, since he had not been burned or injured otherwise. It was later reported, by biographer Harold Schechter, S-C-H-E-C-H-T-E-R, Schechter? I'll say Schechter. That Henry had bruises on his head. Now, how you know that? The police dismissed the possibility of foul play, and the county coroner later officially listed asphyxiation as the cause of death. Which, girl? Ed? The authorities accepted the accident theory, but no official, investigation was conducted, and an autopsy was not performed. Questioning Ed Gein about the death of Bernice Worden in 1957, state investigator Joe Wilimowski brought up questions about Henry's death. George W. Arndt, who studied the case. Now, we talked about George. Did he do something with John Bonet? Let me Google George real quick. because his name is not hyperlinked here on the Wikipedia. Now, why would you not? Now search Google for George. Why would you treat me this way? Now the internet want to run slow. Oh no, baby, it's too many of them for me to find out who that was. He studied the case, wrote that in retrospect, it was possible and likely that Henry's death was the Cain and Abel aspect of this case. Gein and his mother were now alone. Augusta had a paralyzing stroke shortly after Henry's death, and Gein devoted himself to taking care of her. Sometime in 1945, I'm sorry, I had to check and make sure that the timer was still going, because my computer be like, no. Sometime in 1945, Gein later recounted he and his mother visited a man named Smith. Oh no, Smith from The Matrix, who lived nearby to purchase straw. According to Gein, Augusta witnessed Smith beating a dog. Smith. A woman inside the Smith home came outside and yelled for him to stop, but Smith beat the dog to death in front of company. Terrible. Augusta was extremely upset by this scene. However, what bothered her did not appear to be the brutality towards the dog, rather but the presence of the woman. Augusta told Ed that the woman was not married to Smith, so she had no business being there. Smith's harlot, Augusta angrily called her. She had a second stroke soon after, and her health deteriorated rapidly. She died on December 29, 1945, at the age of 67. Ed was devastated by her death. In the words of author Harold Schechter, he had lost his only friend and one true love. And he was absolutely alone in the world. Now, this boy had done had some odd jobs, honey. He did some ends and odds, and did some repairs, and he boarded up the rooms used by his mother, including the upstairs, downstairs parlor, and the living room, leaving them untouched. While the rest of the house became increasingly squalid, the rest of the rooms that he boarded up remained pristine. Gein lived thereafter in a small room next to the kitchen. Around this time, he became interested in reading pulp magazines and adventure stories, particularly those involving cannibals and Nazi atrocities. He was a handyman and received a farm subsidy from the federal government starting in 1951. He occasionally worked for the local municipal road crew and crop threshing crews in the area. Sometime between 1946 and 1956, he also sold an 80-acre parcel of land that his brother Henry had owned. Oh my God, today, let's get to the crimes. Let me try to scoot this radiator just a little bit. Ooh, that's hot. Closer to me, because it is cold boots up in here. Now, why would you, thank you. I need to get to the crimes, but I don't need to burn up my computer in the process. Okay? Thanks. On the morning of November 16th, 1957, Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Warden disappeared. A Plainfield resident reported that the hardware store's truck had been driven out from the rear of the building at around 9:30 a.m. The hardware store saw few customers the entire day. Some area residents believed, I be reading too fast, and then my mouth want to say what I'm reading instead of what I had done read already. That's what's going on here. I'm not illiterate, honey. My chest is cold. I should have put a shirt on under here. Where was I? Some area residents believed this was because of deer hunting season. Bernice, my God, today. Bernice, why I want to call her Bernice? Bernice Worden's son, Deputy Sheriff Frank Worden, entered the store around 5 o'clock p.m. to find the store's cash register open and bloodstains on the floor. Frank Worden told investigators that on the evening before his mother's disappearance, Gein had been in the store, and that he was to have returned by the next morning for a gallon of antifreeze. The sales slip for a gallon of antifreeze was the last receipt written by Worden on the morning she disappeared. On the evening of the same day, Gein was arrested at a West Plainfield grocery store, and the Washoe County Sheriff's Department searched Gein's farm. A Washoe County Sheriff's Department discovered Worden's decapitated body in a shed on Gein's property, hung upside down by her legs with a crossbar at her ankles and ropes at her wrists. The torso was dressed out like a deer, meaning, and I'm so sorry for the graphic nature of this. I probably should have put up a warning, but baby, it's true crime. You know there's going to be warning. Dressed out like a deer, meaning that her body was cut open and the internals was no longer in there. They were no longer internal. She had been shot with a .22 caliber rifle, and the mutilations were made after her death. So, thank God for that, I guess. Searching the house, authorities found. Y'all ready for this? This is really graphic, so take your time. If you need to pause this and go get you something to drink or read your Bible for a couple minutes. Get your marinating chicken out the fridge like I was supposed to do and have it cooking so that you can have something to eat by this evening. You know, these kind of things. Do this because I need to go get that chicken out the fridge, but we'll do that after this. Searching the house, authorities found whole human bones and fragments, a wastebasket made of human skin covering several chair seats, skulls on his bedpost. Now, I think if they weren't human skulls and if they were like manufactured plastic or metal skulls on your bedpost might be kind of sickening. It might be a fashion moment. Female skulls, some with the tops sawn off. Bowls made from human skulls. A corset made from a female torso skinned from shoulders to waist. Leggings made from human leg skin. Masks made from the skin of female heads. Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag. Mary Hogan's skull in a box. Bernice Worden's entire head in a burlap sack. Bernice Worden's heart in a plastic bag in front of Gein's potbelly stove. Girl, he's about to eat it. Child. 9 vulvae in a shoebox. If you don't know what a vulva is, honey, I would tell you to Google it, but that's risky. Just know that it is an intimate area on a woman's body. A young girl's dress and the vulvas of 2 females judged to have been about 15 years old. A belt made from female human nipples, 4 noses. A pair of lips on a window shade drawstring. A lampshade made from the skin of a human face. Fingernails from female fingers. I was finna say our sister. So, Miss Ed had done took to redecorating and making herself a little outfit, honey, out of these body parts. A whole little skin, like she had the leggings, she had the upper body torso piece. Miss Ed had some issues, okay? I'm worried about her. And I'm not trying to misgender Ed Gein. It seems like he may have had, either another personality that was a woman, or maybe they were a transgender woman. I don't know. Gender fluid. I'm not sure. But Miss Ed had some issues because, wow. These artifacts were photographed at the state crime laboratory, then decently disposed of. So they probably just burned them up. When questioned, Gein told investigators that between 1947 and 1952, he made as many as 40 nocturnal visits to visit 3 local graveyards to exhume recently buried bodies while he was in a dazed-like state. On about 30 of those visits, he said he came out of the daze while in the cemetery and left the grave in good order, and then returned home empty-handed. Now, is nobody noticing that these recently dug up graves were recently dug up? Like, my auntie died like 15 years ago, but her grave is freshly dug. That's alarming. Nobody said that? Okay. On the other occasions, he dug up the graves of recently buried, middle-aged women he thought resembled his mother, and took the bodies home, where he tanned their skins to make his paraphernalia. Gein admitted to stealing from 9 graves from local cemeteries and led investigators to their locations. Alan Wilimowski, the state crime laboratory, participated in opening 3 test graves identified by Gein. The caskets were inside wooden boxes. The top boards ran crossways, not lengthwise. The tops of the boxes were about 2 feet below the surface in sandy soil. I need to get some sandy soil because my aloe vera plant is going through some things, and I had done ran out of sand, girl, so I can't make my own sandy soil. It's terrible. Gein had robbed the graves soon after the funerals, while the graves were not completed. The test graves were exhumed because authorities were uncertain as to whether the slight Gein was capable of single-handedly digging up a grave during a single evening. They were found as Gein described. 2 of the exhumed graves were found empty. One had a crowbar in place of the body. It's like, I don't think the crowbar and the body weighed the same. Why would you have left the crowbar? Just take the crowbar. One casket was empty. One casket Gein had failed to open when he lost his pry bar. And most of the body was gone from the 3rd grave, yet Gein had returned rings and some body parts. Thus, Gein's confession was largely corroborated. Soon after his mother's death, Gein began to create a woman suit so that he could become his mother, to literally crawl into her skin. But sister, your mother died, so why you just didn't get your mama and crawl into her skin? I mean, not saying he should have done any of this, but like, why you disturb other folk? Now these folk families all tore up because you done been all in they loved ones' graves. When your mama, whatever. Gein denied having sex with the bodies he exhumed, explaining they smelled too bad. Okay. I mean, I would have did it, but they stank. All right. During the state crime laboratory interrogation, Gein also admitted to the shooting death of Mary Hogan, a tavern owner missing since 1954, whose head was found in his house. But he later denied memories of details of her death. A 16-year-old youth whose parents were friends of Gein and who attended ball games and movies with him reported that Gein kept shrunken heads in his house, which Gein had described as relics from the Philippines sent by a cousin who had served on the islands during World War I. Isn't that convenient? Oh yeah, I just got a cousin. He'd be sending me these heads, child. I put up with him, but like, girl, this is my cousin. He weird. Okay. Upon investigation by the police, these were determined to be human facial skins carefully peeled from corpses and used by Gein as masks. Oh my God. Gein was also considered a suspect in several other unsolved cases in Wisconsin, including the 1953 disappearance of Evelyn Hardy. Now, Evelyn was an American teenager who had been missing since 1953 from La Crosse, Wisconsin, who disappeared on October 24th, 1953. Her disappearance sparked a search involving 2,000 people in the first year following her investigation. I'm sorry, I had to click on the Wikipedia because it was hyperlinked. In the first year following her disappearance, investigators questioned more than 3,500 people. As of 2021, no trace of her has been found. I'm not going to read her full Wikipedia, but God rest her soul. During questioning, Washoe County Sheriff Art Schley, S-C-H-L-E-Y, Schley, reportedly assaulted Gein by banging his head and face into a brick wall. I know that's right. As a result, Gein's initial confession was ruled inadmissible. Schley died of heart failure at age 43 in 1968 before Gein's trial. Many who knew Schley said he was traumatized by the horror of Gein's crimes. I can imagine. And this, along with the fear of having to testify, especially about assaulting Gein, caused his death. One of his friends said he was a victim of Ed Gein as surely as if he had butchered him. Wow. Okay, so as far as the trial, he was arraigned on one count of first-degree murder. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and found mentally incompetent, thus unfit for his trial. He was sent to the hospital, the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, which is now the Dodge Correctional Institution. It was a maximum security facility in Waupun, Wisconsin, and he was later transferred to the Mendota State Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin. In 1968, he was determined mentally able to confer with counsel and participate in his defense, and his trial began in 1968 and lasted 1 week. Long story short, child, he had went back to the to the hospital. The fate of his property: the house was appraised at $4,700, which is the equivalent of $42,000 in 2020. His possessions were scheduled to be auctioned. I don't want none of them. In 1958, amidst rumors that the house and the land it stood on might become a tourist attraction. The house was destroyed by a fire early on the morning of March 20th. Yeah, somebody burned it down, girl. Which I know that's right. His Ford sedan, which he used to haul the bodies of his victims, was sold at public auction for $760, which is the equivalent of $6,800 in 2020, to a carnival sideshow operator, Bunny Gibbons. Not Givens like my girl, Robin. And he charged carnival goers 25-cent admission to see it. That is disgusting. He died due to respiratory failure, secondary to lung cancer, child. Over the years, souvenir seekers chipped pieces from his gravestone, and until the stone itself was stolen in 2000. Now, y'all done stole that man gravestone. There are some odd people out here. It was recovered in June 2001 near Seattle, Washington, was placed in storage at the Washoe County Sheriff's Department. The grave site itself is now unmarked but not unknown. He is interred between his parents and brother in the cemetery. Anyway, child, he has his story has had a lasting effect on pop culture. He was fictionalized in Psycho. He was fictionalized in The Light of the Moon, Deranged, Ed Gein the Butcher of Plainfield, Ed Gein the Musical. I'm saying Gein at this point because I'm trying to, whatever. Rob Zombie's films House of 1,000 Corpses and its sequel, The Devil's Rejects. He serves as inspiration for a myriad of fictional serial killers, most notably Norman Bates from Psycho, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. The character Dr. Oliver Thredson and the TV stories, in the TV series American Horror Story Asylum, which is one of the best American Horror Story seasons out there. The first 3 seasons, 8. Okay, they 8. American filmmaker Errol Morris and German filmmaker Werner Herzog attempted unsuccessfully to collaborate on a film project about him from 1975 to 1976. Yada yada blah blah blah. The world is super into the story about this man, and God unrest his soul. Thank you so much for coming to True Crime Tuesday. I am tired, okay? Oh, that took a lot out of me, but I can cross it off my calendar, child, for topics crossed. It is crossed off, girl. I don't ever have to talk about it again. Thank you so much for coming to True Crime Tuesday. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what other cases you want to hear about. I do have my 2022 calendar completely filled. So some of your suggestions may be in 2023. Some of them I might already have on the calendar, but just let me know what's interesting to you. And I'll holla back, y'all. What? I don't know what that was. Peace.